Hey, what's up, guys? We have Sam Believ here to talk about ayahuasca. He has his own ayahuasca company in Colombia and also is an expert on ayahuasca. So, how you doing today, Sam?
Hey Mika, doing great. How about you?
I'm doing good too. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Sam Believ. I am 36 years old, originally from Latvia. That's Northeastern Europe. I moved to Colombia about 8 years ago. Um, Got a little depressed, so found about ayahuasca. Tried it for myself 4.5 years ago for the first time, and after that, kind of fell in love with the plant medicine. Changed my life, and kind of observing how awesome it is. So started my own ayahuasca retreat 3 years ago here together with my wife. It's called Lawayra, and we host 700 people a year on average. We are the best rated ayahuasca retreat in South America, according to Google reviews. So I'm really proud of that. Another thing for me, I'm a father of three. We have three young kids. And what else? I'm an ex-marine mechanical engineer, but I switched to now being a retreat owner and a spiritual guy. But I'm trying to keep a good balance between my engineering side and my spiritual side. So I think when it comes to like introducing new audiences to ayahuasca, I think I can give you a pretty reasonable explanation, so I don't lean too much into the woo-woo side of things. But yeah, that's pretty much about me.
Yeah, seems like it would be like a more fun job to be an ayahuasca leader than engineering, right?
Yeah, I mean,
A little
offshore
bit
oil and
more
gas is
exciting.
like you're in a piece of metal in the middle of the sea, and there's just men around you, and you work like 12 hours a day, and it's stressful, and there's like all kinds of dangers, and all you get in return is money, and money can't buy you happiness, or money can't buy you love, and as they say in that song. But yeah, like right now, it's a this job is pretty stressful because we have our team is like 30 plus people now. We really grew and became pretty big. So it's stressful, but it's really fulfilling because you meet a lot of new people from all over the world, different walks of life, and you see people's lives transformed and you get to know their stories. So it's much more fulfilling, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you have like a whole kind of like retreat over there, like a comp, not a compound, but like a whole retreat space, right?
Yeah, I mean, Americans say resort even sometimes. It's
Resort.
because like 10 cabins, and we have like 20 beds and shared rooms, and we have a pool and a big ceremony space, a 10-acre property in like mountains here in Colombia. So it's a really nice big big place that we built. We didn't start this way. Like I'm in no way rich, so we kind of just started small. It started with me organizing a ceremony in my backyard. I had like a little kind of countryside house property, and the opportunity presented to start organizing ceremonies, and we started with like one ceremony a month, and then two ceremonies a month, and now we're at 10 ceremonies and 18 days a month of retreat. So basically working almost nonstop and hosting on average 700 people a year.
Yeah, and like, so are you kind of like in the middle of the rainforest? Is it, or is it
So
kind of like,
yeah, the ecosystem here is called cloud forest. So it's like mountains and forests and like a bit of jungle here and there, but it's not like so we're not in the Amazon. Amazon is a bit lower, so we're not far from it, but we don't get like poisonous snakes or malaria mosquitoes that can kill you. So that's a nice trade-off, and we're closer to the airports in big cities, and we have a hospital nearby. But the shaman that we have, he's an indigenous guy. He comes all the way from the jungle. He like drives for 26 hours, brings a fresh medicine. So we try and find the balance between the comfort and the authenticity and like traditionality of things. So and I believe we managed to find it's like our main thing is like authenticity, affordability, and accessibility. I wouldn't want it to be too far so nobody can get to it, and also too expensive so nobody can afford it. But at the same time, I want, tradition to be preserved. So I'm not one of those like white shaman guys that kind of drank ayahuasca once and now is a shaman. That's not the case.
yeah. So do you travel into the Amazon with your group, or do you kind of like stay where you are?
No, we live here and we stay here. Just the shaman comes, brings the medicine, and then the group comes from all over the world and they come here. The best part about here, I don't know what I'll do is hopefully I'm not gonna ruin it, but I'm just gonna show you the view outside of my window. Let it readjust. Too bright.
Yeah, it's really bright, but yeah,
Too
I can
bright, but you
see
can see
now.
like it's green mountains. You can see some cabins. You see the pool there behind the bushes. That's the kind of that's my view.
Yeah, it looks very nice. But you
Yes.
never actually go, you never actually go down into the Amazon.
No, I mean I went for sure. I in my journey, when I started drinking medicine regularly and I wanted to do a deep dive, I went to the Amazon. It was in the Amazon in one of the ceremonies when I got this big message from the medicine that I should work with the medicine. This became my path, and I've been on it for 3 years now, like running the retreats and also the podcast that I have, which is podcast about ayahuasca specifically. And I'm writing a book now, and all the whole shebang, the full suite.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned you're not into like the woo-woo stuff. Like I don't really believe necessarily in it, but I am definitely interested in it. Like I had some guys on before talking about astral projection, and like I don't really believe in astral projection, but it's interesting to talk about it and consciousness and then like kind of like where you go with the ayahuasca or DMT, because the DMT is in the ayahuasca, right?
Yeah, that's it's one of the active ingredients. So it's like I can't say I'm not woo anymore. I'm definitely somewhat woo, and I do understand that there is a spiritual aspect to ayahuasca healing. It's just that I think for a lot of people, like normal people, they get scared away from working with the medicine because they think like, oh, if you want to sit with ayahuasca, you have to like wear white linen pants and beads, and you have to be kind of hippie and you have to be spiritual. But that's not the case because like with that, like our retreat, Lawayra, its motto is connect, heal, grow. So it's like you come to ayahuasca to connect, to heal, and then to grow. And the spiritual part kind of comes into the growth side of things because it's like there is endless spiritual exploration, and I've seen stuff that is like cannot be explained rationally, but nevertheless, I believe in it. But what I'm saying is, I'm trying to give first timers an outlook on the medicine that is more focused on the healing side of things. So they don't need to worry that they will feel out of place because they don't think they're kind of alien or, you know, they don't believe in future lives and stuff like that. But what I myself believe at the moment, honestly, I'm not even sure. I'm kind of like I went from one worldview where nothing is only science works and everything else is bullshit to now kind of like expanding it, but I haven't figured it out completely. I mean, I interviewed people on near death experiences and all kinds of strange things, and there's definitely a lot of patterns to kind of make me believe that they know what they're talking about, but at the same time, I cannot really claim that I know much. Because like with ayahuasca, it's like people ask me like, how does it work? And it's like, well, we don't know. It maybe you're talking to your subconscious, or maybe the shamans say you're talking to the plant spirit, or maybe it's just a neurological process where your brain is resetting. So we don't know how it works, and anyone who claims they do know the complete picture is probably lying. But we do know that it works, so we keep doing it.
Yeah. And so you said that you were depressed and then you started doing it and you got better. So how did it help you with your depression?
So the way it works is, as we like to say, ayahuasca is not a magic bullet. So it's not, it doesn't just go away and like take away your problems. So in my case, I would drink it and it would take my depression away, and I would just have a different outlook in life. I would like the grass would be green again, and my depression was based on one main issue, which is I didn't have a direction in life. So I quit offshore oil and gas, and I was kind of in like a semi-retirement state, and I was really miserable because I didn't have a purpose. So it kind of showed me that. It showed me that I'm lacking purpose, and then eventually kind of gave me the purpose. Not immediately, but in those periods of time when I would feel better, I would be able to go take courses, read books, and kind of move my situation forward a little bit. And then when I was ready, I guess I found a new path, and I was ready to embark on it because now I knew more about running businesses, and I did a coaching course. So when it came together, I was more ready. So that's kind of how it works, very slowly and very gradually. And but if you are depressed, the chances are if you work with the medicine for the first time, it will remove the depression, but it will not remove it forever. It will give you homework.
Yeah. So have you had any like crazy trips? Because you hear a lot about, people throwing up or shitting themselves or whatever. Like, I mean, do you have a lot of like crazy trips where like you almost feel like just like you're not even in control and like what's it like?
I've,
Just I guess walk me through
I've had
if
a
I were
fair
to
share
take
of
it.
crazy, I've had a fair share of crazy trips myself, and of course, observe a lot of people going through theirs. And I have pooped my pants once, and I've seen many people do it, but it's not really that common. It's a really rare occurrence. But just in case, like in our at retreat, we do sell adult diapers in a store if you're worried about that. But
Wow.
so crazy trips is like people focus on that a lot, like crazy trips. I just want to go drink ayahuasca and trip and like see aliens or like go to another planet, which is all cool and funny and it does happen, but it's more of a side effect. Like what we focus on is like how can we give you such amount of medicine where you're connected to it and you're going through this process and it's like you're realizing issues that are applicable to yourself and you're on a trip, you're definitely in it, you're in connection with ayahuasca, with the medicine, you feel comfortable, safe, but conscious enough to be able to recall the information and remember it and be able to process it and start getting emotions and feeling out of your body, bringing them up, healing. So it's like we actually would want to avoid putting you in a crazy trip. So I would say it does happen because different people, different bodies, but it's not a desired outcome to have somebody just freak out and like roll on the floor and poop their pants. We would want to avoid that. And for that, the way the medicine is served, it's served in small cups, and you have one cup and you kind of feel it. So then you have another one, you go a little deeper. So this way you can kind of moderate how deep you go. But on that, I mean, I've been slapped, I've been punched in the face, I've been bitten, I've been scratched, I've been spit on. So that's what happens when somebody goes too deep and kind of too crazy. But at the same time, when we most of the time when we're able to find that perfect dose, just people just come back and they're like, the amount of times I've heard like this was the best day of my life or like my life changed today is like probably a couple hundred times at least.
But even if you have a bad trip, would you still look at that as like a good experience? Like maybe it was the drug just kicking you in the ass and being like, you got to get your shit together or something like that? Or do you think that a bad trip really is just totally a bad experience?
No, so it's more complex than just like a good trip or a bad trip. The way I characterize them is like you have a square with four quadrants, and one of them is it's a difficult experience, productive experience, uh, uh, easy experience, non-productive experience. So if you have a difficult experience, but you're not resisting the medicine. A lot of stuff comes in it. It's like very difficult physically and mentally, but you can get out of it with so much learnings. It's not a bad trip. It's just a difficult trip. You will the bad those difficult ones are the ones where you get the most learning from, the most healing from. However, if you have an easy trip and it's a nice trip, that's also nice. It's like you're ecstatic and you're connecting and it just feels amazing. But if you have a difficult trip and you resist the medicine and you're just like flailing around, so it's unproductive, only then it can be called a bad trip. Because if it's a difficult trip, but you like your life changes after that. Like, is it really bad? I don't think so.
So if somebody comes there and has a really just bad trip, how would you handle that? Like, do you kind of just have to let it play out for however long it lasts? How long do the trips last for?
So first of all, most bad trips that, understood colloquially happen where you take an unknown amount of psychedelic in an unsafe place. You're lost and confused. Maybe there are stressors, and then you have like paranoia experience and stuff like that. Like here, it's like mind that it's like arguably one of the best ayahuasca retreats. So people come over, and we spend at least 26 hours before they even touch the medicine, just talking, doing word circles, doing like group therapy, preparing them for their experience, like how to navigate it, what to do if you're not connecting to the medicine, or if you went too deep, how to ground yourself. It's like there's like a course. It's like a 6 hour course that like gets you ready, and then at the same time you get really comfortable with the place. There's like this beautiful medicine house that's like specifically designed for ayahuasca ceremony. There's a fire burning, there are candles, there's a shaman, there's a group of 10 facilitators. So it's like you're not gonna get a paranoia bad trip because you feel so safe with the space before you even come. So it's not that common. It's not really that common. Like people do get difficult experience, but it would be hard for me to remember last time somebody had a unproductive, difficult experience. But if it does happen, let's say somebody well, if it goes really hard and somebody goes so deep and they get aggressive and they start like flailing around, well, we have a team of people. We hold them down together. We talk to them. Shaman comes and he does his spiritual work and brings the person kind of down a little bit. And then when they go back to normal, then they kind of tell us what happened. So we have a lot of resources to deal with those. But honestly, they're not really that common, especially now we built the Moloka, which is that medicine house, and it's more contained. And somehow, since we built it, nobody ever like freaked out big time on us. So hopefully, I'm not jinxing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So how, I think you might have said, but how long does the trip last for?
Normally, the ceremony is about 6 hours. So normally, ayahuasca experience lasts about 4 hours, but it can differ. Sometimes it can be a little longer, but not more than 6 hours. I would say 4 to 6 hours.
Okay. And then do you guys usually do it like at night or during the day, or does it matter?
So actually, most ceremonies are night ceremonies, but we do in our longer retreats, we do have some day ceremonies as well. So if somebody comes for 1 week, which has 4 ceremonies, there's 3 night ceremonies, and then there's 1 day break, and then there's a day ceremony. So night ceremonies, because it's like dark and you have a fire and a little like soft lights, you do more introspection because you don't have that many distractions outside of you. And then the day ceremony in the end is like you already worked on yourself, so much stuff came up, you feel better, more like connected. Then it's kind of more of a celebration because then you see all this beautiful nature around you. You have this big mountain right in front of us that looks really cool. And it's more of a celebration, kind of gratitude for, how beautiful the earth we live in is.
Yeah. So what's it like if you had to explain it to the best of your ability? If I was to take it, how would you explain the trip if you're able to?
I can give it a try, but it is ineffable, meaning like you can't describe it with words, but I mean some aspects of it you can. The thing is that I've probably had 100 plus ceremonies by now, and I've never had a same ceremony twice. But if I would go through maybe a most common pattern for me myself, number one, you will purge. So most of the ceremonies you will vomit or you will have diarrhea, which stops most people from working with ayahuasca, which is really sad because purging not only is not a side effect, but it's like the crucial aspect. This is kind of like when you take the stuff, emotional stuff, and you put it into physical, and then you purge it and release it. So in my case, I'm more of a bottom purger, which means I have a lot of mostly have diarrhea and I don't vomit that much. So I come, I drink my cup, I then go sit down by the fire. I like to work with tobacco as well, smoking a cigar, but like ceremonially. And as I smoke cigar, I start to feel my body getting a little heavy, my stomach kind of churning a little bit. I go to bathroom and then I start, seeing like light visuals, eyes open, eyes closed. I go lay down on my mattress and thoughts start to come up, feelings, and then I go through, sometimes you go through like realms and you get like really realmy, jestery style place like Legoland, and sometimes there's this realm where it's like there's lots of like snakes with patterns on them and you kind of squeeze in between them. But it's like there's like hundreds, if not thousands, of different feelings. And then after you kind of go through that kind of rough come up period, then you feel most of the time for me, you feel like really connected and you start like if you ask questions, you start getting answers. You feel emotions start to come up or maybe feelings, old memories. I mean, it's really diverse. Like we do word circles after ceremonies, and I've heard thousands of different kinds of experiences. But what we like to say is like somehow magically, and I really don't understand how it works. The medicine gives like the person the trip that they need. So it's like if somebody has an issue they don't even know about, and maybe they might have a different intention to come work with the medicine, but it's like it takes you exactly where the pain point is, and then it kind of massages it, and then you purge it out, and then you come back, and then you process it, and you journal about it, and you maybe do some integration work, and then eventually you just get better. So then you might come back in the future, do it again to, work on another issues. Just like, I mean, I interviewed many like psychotherapists and PhDs and writers, and the best analogy is if mental health journey is like digging a tunnel, ayahuasca is like dynamite, and it just speeds up the process and just moves all those emotions, thoughts. But if I tell people like, oh, here's exactly what you will experience at your ayahuasca ceremony, I'm doing them this favor, or I don't know how would you say it, because if they expect a certain kind of outcome, they will actually it will resist. It will prevent them from actually feeling the experience that is their experience that's coming up for them. So basically, I hope that answers a little bit. I know it's very vague.
No, it didn't. Like you said, you probably really can't explain what's going on. Totally, it's hard to explain how you feel,
Let me
but
let me tell just one more thing. Is the
okay.
problem is I mean, you say drug, and I used to say drug as well, but ayahuasca is a medicine. It's been used as a medicine for 5,000 years before we even had a word drug ever attached to it. And the thing is that we as Westerners, we really attach our to the outcome. It's like, oh, what am I gonna see? What are the visions I'm gonna see? Or like, what is the trip like? It's not really about that. Like when you come to work with ayahuasca, you come for healing, which means is you come in and you give yourself in. It's like you're entering a hospital and they're working on you. So it's like, is it really that important for you when you go on to get a surgery? And don't do you like focus on how your incision is made and trying to feel all those feelings? It's almost irrelevant. Like what matters is what is the outcome? What is the healing you're gonna get? But we're like shaman commonly says like if you want to see visions or if you want to see pretty pictures, he say go to the cinema. Because like ayahuasca, you can have an entire experience that will like change your life and you will not see a single vision. It will all be in your body. Or you can have an experience that I mean you don't even remember. Like I had the guy, he came and he did the one weekend. He was thinking he's not connecting with the medicine, but then he came back home. His wife said he's changed, his kids said he's changed, his parents said he's changed, and then his depression went away. It's like it is more of a medicine and less of a drug. It's like I understand that the curiosity lies in like this like visions, but it's almost like secondary. Like, you will see cool visions and you'll see like I spoke with, angels and Egyptian gods and all kinds of weird stuff, but it's like it's not that matters. Like what was the message that I received and how am I going to apply it to my life? That matters more than the vision itself.
Yeah, but like before, I understand that, but like before if I was to do it, before I was to do it, I kind of would want to know what's actually going on. I wouldn't just kind of like blindly go into it being like, well, whatever happens, happens. I kind of want to know why it's
No, for
working and if
sure.
there's any
This
like
was this was
scientific evidence to it.
yeah,
So
there's
yeah, so what do you think's going on? Like actually, like is it just some like do you have an answer for it, or is it just some for some reason it's just kind of like opening your mind to kind of like see things, maybe like opening the subconscious? Yeah, what do you think's happening when you do it?
so there is no like definitive answer, and I don't think anyone has it. My understanding now it's like kind of holistic approach where I think it's a spiritual, physical, and mental process kind of all at the same time. I think what happens simultaneously from like scientific point of view, your BDNF increases, your brain becomes more malleable and more flexible, so you can like reroute your thought patterns. This has been proven scientifically. At the same time, spiritually, we have a physical body, we have a spiritual body. I know some people might not believe in it. I'm still kind of on the fence with it, but I've seen enough to kind of starting to believe it. But spiritually, there is a release of some, energies, whatever you want to call them, and then physically there's purging somehow, our tensions and are stored in the body somatically. It's like this is also pretty scientifically provable that those tensions get removed and you just feel lighter. So all of that together somehow results in feeling better and healing. But to tell you like one definitive answer, it's like, yeah, we don't really know how it works. We just know it works because like I keep seeing people coming and getting their healing, their relief. It's like not only healing, like let's say you're fine, but you don't know what to do with life, or you need to understand like why do you always have issues in relationships or whatever it is, and then you kind of work with it, and it makes you feel better. Or you're fine, but you drink too much, so you come over and you work with ayahuasca, and it shows you like actually the reason you drink is because you carry that pain from like a trauma that happened to you when you were a child, and somehow you reprocess that trauma, and now it just becomes a memory, and not a trauma anymore, and you stop drinking over and over again. Hundreds of people that we had that quit drinking as well. Eating disorders, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation. So many people that told us that they bought one-way ticket because they said if this doesn't work, I'm going to kill myself. They're all still alive. Relationship issues. Some couples coming, they said that we were going to divorce, and then we gave it a chance, and somehow they worked it out. So it's really hard to explain what happens, but it's a complex topic. That's why I have an entire podcast about ayahuasca itself.
Yeah, and so what's the difference between the DMT and the ayahuasca? Like, have you ever just done DMT?
No, I've never done DMT. My approach to working with plant medicines or, drugs, as you if you want to call it this way, is I only work with like traditional stuff that has like 1,000-year-old tradition, because this way I know that it's safe, not just for me, but also like generationally. But I've worked with DMT snuff, for example. There's couple snuffs that you blow them up their nose, and it contains DMT. One of them is Wilca, and the other one, I don't know why I'm forgetting the name, Yopo. So I work with that, and would be totally different experience than from smoking DMT. But DMT is an active ingredient in ayahuasca, one of them. That's the one that causes hallucinogenic effects. But ayahuasca vine is an MAOI, so it's MAO inhibitor. It basically makes DMT orally active. So when you consume it, you're able to receive DMT through your gut, and because of that, your DMT ayahuasca experience is 3 4 hours. So you go through this entire process with a lot of processing and information, as opposed to DMT where you smoke it, it's like 10 to 15 minutes, and it's purely vision. Ayahuasca, like, yeah, if you want visions, just smoke DMT, but if you want healing, then you drink ayahuasca. So DMT is part of ayahuasca healing, but there's many other compounds in it that make it more complete. So I've never done DMT. I know a lot of people that done DMT come here drink ayahuasca, but it's a totally different experience. It's kind of like, I don't know, you have salt in your pizza, but we serve you pizza, but you say like, what about salt? I'm like, well, it's an important part of it, but does not define the entire thing. I just came up with this analogy. I feel pretty proud of it.
Yeah.
It's
So in terms of the conscious, like I've kind of recently gotten into like consciousness, different views in consciousness. I don't really know how much you know about consciousness or think about it, or like even just like the spiritual aspect of it. What are your thoughts on that? So do you have any views on consciousness, like what's going on just in general with the world?
I mean, I picked up a few things here and there. There's many different angles you can look at this question. The What's coming up for me now is like number one, like where do our thoughts come from? It's like, are they generated in our brain, or is there some kind of cloud and we're connected to it? That's one way to look at it. Or consciousness, as in like from a point of view of elevating the consciousness. Some people talk about taking it from 3D and putting it to 5D, and I don't understand what it means, but I know that when you work with ayahuasca, you become more conscious, you just become more mindful, you become more connected to you. Before ayahuasca, I thought, I'm a body and I'm here and need to make money to eat food and have sex to procreate, and then I die and I rot, and that's about it. Now I believe that we're just the souls that live here for a period of time, getting some kind of lesson, and then something else happens. And this is purely my belief system that I'm working on now because I've observed that information people go and have a deep ayahuasca experience and they come over and it's like, well, that's what I saw. And I was like, well, if they saw it, and then there's people from all over the world that seen a similar thing from different walks of life, I'm like, oh, there's something in it. So I don't know if it answers your question. What kind of aspect of consciousness do you want to talk about?
Well, recently I've kind of just gotten into like I've had people on to talk about, do you know what idealism is?
Hmm.
You do? Yeah. So like
I mean, somewhat.
idealism versus like materialism, like whether or not like we're living inside of consciousness or we're just everything's material. I'm not
Hmm.
very good at explaining it. Like if I have someone on who knows a lot about it, and I
Yeah.
thought you might just because you're in, it seems like people who are into like ayahuasca like kind of are interested in like
Yeah.
consciousness and
I'll share one last thing that's coming up when you ask me about that. Is like, what is, it's kind of victim mentality versus creator mentality. It's like, is the world happens around us and affects us, or do we create the world around us through our consciousness, right? So that I know a little bit enough about because I kind of battle with it every day of my existence, kind of like manifesting good things or bad things. But like I'm no philosopher. I mean, my chief facilitator, he loves talking about those topics and reading me quotes from different um, you know, different schools of thought consciousness or um, like ideologically, like what is the best way to live life and what is wrong and what is right. I honestly don't involve myself with these things. I just know that I need to get people to drink ayahuasca to heal. So this, I kind of fly low. I don't go too far up. I don't want to get too distracted because I think if I go too much into the woo-woo part, then who's gonna run the business for me?
yeah. Well, I mean, what's interesting about the woo woo part is that I like some of it is just woo woo and it's just like bullshit, really. But it's like some of it I think is can be scientifically proven or whatever. Like I don't know, like if you how much you know about like quantum mechanics and stuff like that. I don't know too much about it, so I wouldn't be able to talk about it. But like when you hear about quantum mechanics, when you hear about scientists talk about what's going on like at the smallest level, it's just kind of like atoms flying around each
Yeah,
other or whatever, and it's like they're in like different positions at the same time. So it's like
yeah,
even though a lot of it you could just say, oh, it's woo woo, which I agree with you. I think that it is. A lot of it is just woo woo, but it's interesting to talk about it. But it's like, well, is there any truth to like you hear when people are having ayahuasca um trips or whatever, like they are literally like I think I've heard more so on like the DMT thing, but like they'll literally go to like a different planet, or like you probably know about them talking to the machine elves, and I guess like a lot of people talk see the machine elves type stuff where like people will see similar things. So it's like I guess the big question would be is do you think that something metaphysical or spiritual or whatever you want to call it is happening, or do you think it's all like really just grounded inside your mind and like there are things inside your like kind of like when you have a dream it's like it's just all happening inside your mind. It's a similar thing where like it's all just happening inside your mind, or do you think there's actually spiritual like if you were to talk to like an angel when you're having a trip, would you come back and be like I was really talking to an angel or a demon or an alien or whatever, or would you be like no, that was just really me, my brain talking to itself essentially, but like at the same time figuring
yeah.
things out?
I feel like in the beginning of my work with the medicine, I was more thinking that it's just a neurological process and it all happens in your brain. And now I'm more leaning towards that something is actually happening with the caveat that there can be some pollution, as in like some people can interpret their own experience as like a something external. But I definitely, I mean, I've seen not like elves, but I've seen some entities and I interacted with them and it felt really real. Like for example, one of the recent stories is we had an avalanche here, like the big piece of mountain just kind of fell and went along the creek with all the stones. And it was a scary event. It's like once in 300 years kind of event. And then few months after that, the ceremony, and I've seen this Egyptian god. It's like a human with a crocodile head. And it was teaching me how to set a spell of protection. I was like, that's cool, I never heard about this. And next day I Googled it and I was like, that's a god and his name is Sobek and it's called and it was used by Egyptians for like protection against the elements. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like I didn't know that. So it's like when you see things like that, or somebody has an experience about a certain person, and then next day that person calls them and is like, let's chat. There's definitely a lot of stuff that is not wouldn't be explained. Like how can you explain it with the modern science? But I think that you mentioned quantum physics, and it's like quantum physics is where science is now meeting spirituality. All of a sudden, they realized, like in double slit experiment, that presence of consciousness or presence of observer can make a difference whether it the photon behaves as a particle or as a wave. So it means that our consciousness affects physical reality. We don't know the exact mechanism, but all of those things make you question, what is normal, what is not. But what I mean by woo-woo is less so ability to question what is real and what is not, and kind of explore, but more of like um, kind of assuming that you know the answer, and then also um claiming stuff that is not real. Because yeah, there is stuff that is unexplainable in the reality, but 99% of time when people tell you, it's like I've heard there's this ayahuasca retreat that says like, oh, if you come and pay us, $7,000, you're gonna receive a miracle. And I was like, that's woo-woo, because like no way you can guarantee a miracle. And then there's like, so there is a real part to all of the abnormal stuff, and there is also just a part that is not real, which people do maybe from the point of view of ego or from a point of view of making money.
Yeah, for sure. And but I mean, I feel like even America does, woo woo bullshit with like ads, like with Red Bull. It says like Red Bull will give you wings. I mean, obviously it's not the same thing as
Hmm.
the ayahuasca person telling you you'll get a miracle, but it's like that's just like their way of selling their not their bullshit, because I don't think that ayahuasca is bullshit, but it's like it's their way of selling their product, I guess. But yeah, I see. Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. Um, yeah, I mean, my main thing is like with this type of stuff is it's kind of like, okay, like if you really, and I'm not saying you do, because you seem to be pretty practical, but like if you really think that something's going on that's more than science or it's metaphysical or whatever, it's spiritual, I kind of feel like, and I think that people will say that like you can't do this, but it's like you should try and like nail it down, like what's really going on, like, and I know it's very hard to do that because each time you probably have a different trip, and it would probably be extremely hard to kind of like have like a control group or whatever. But
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that there it would be interesting to do that. And it's like I recently had a guy on who was hearing voices, and he went into the rehab or whatever, and they basically said like you're experiencing psychosis. But what he was saying was like he thinks that it's like he's hearing voices from like a either a different dimension or whatever. And he was saying some of the stuff they were saying to him, he didn't even know what it meant. He didn't know what the words were, like places they were talking about or people they were talking about, and he literally had to Google it. Like, do I think this type of thing is real? No, not really. But at the same time, like if it would be interesting to explore that more. You know what I mean? And same thing with
So,
ayahuasca. It would be very interesting. And I know that some people want America or whoever to explore whether some of these psychedelics are really good or not. And I think I'm like America, for instance, just doesn't do it. But it's like if it really helps people like you, there should be some scientific evidence that what it's doing and why it's doing it and that it is helping
The,
people. You know what I mean?
there is some science, there are studies, and there's more of them coming out for specific like health issues. What you mentioned about like spiritual side, of course, it would be really hard to measure or even understand. And the reason I'm not good at explaining it is because I'm not a shaman myself. I have a shaman whose father was a shaman, whose father's father was a shaman for many generations. They know what they're doing in like managing the space and holding it together. But that's what you talk about. This person you interview is like when if he would probably grow up in Amazon, he would probably become a shaman because he hears voices, and then he would be trained in how to interpret them and maybe even get answers from it and like do some cool stuff. But obviously in Western society, like they would say, you have schizophrenia. And the line between shamanism and then schizophrenia is extremely thin. I don't even know if it exists. It's just a matter of how you view it. Because we had for a period of time, we had the guy who was a shaman's apprentice, and he's from Mexico. And we had one lady that attended the retreat, and she's like, this guy like reminds me of my patients. She works in a psych ward. Like she said he reminds her of schizophrenia patients, and because like the way he
Oh,
behaves, the
man.
way he speaks. And I was like, well, kind of, yeah, but when it comes to the medicine and shamanism, he's extremely powerful. You have gifts. Like, for example, he predicted that my shaman is gonna work at my retreat before we even started the retreat. Like, and he was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Now it makes sense." So that's a extremely interesting line of exploration. Like, what is shamanism and what is schizophrenia, and like, are you crazy or are you just an untrained shaman? So, and I don't know the answers.
Yeah, and I mean, do you so like when you're a shaman, when if he says like do you I guess the big answer and it sounds like you do believe that it's like he does have productive thoughts or whatever, like the voices that he's hearing aren't just like
Yeah,
random voices. You
some
think
of
that
them,
it's
some of them. Like the
so
case of that apprentice, some of the stuff he says was like on point, and the other is just makes no sense. And I'm like, well, maybe there's some kind of filtering that needs to be done. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt.
yeah. I mean, no, the whole thing is that, well, I mean, I don't know. It's like, I would say that nobody really knows what's going on with that kind of stuff, but it's like, I think that that doesn't mean that we shouldn't get to the bottom of it. And it sounds like in certain cultures, like in yours, being schizo or whatever you want to call it, hearing voices or whatever is can be looked at positively, where in America, it's looked at negatively and like you're just thrown into a psych ward. And it's like it probably would be a good thing to like actually do some maybe like scientific investigation into that. Maybe people have. I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
Well,
But
think about it from American and like Western European religion point of view. It's like there was this guy in Israel, and he saw an angel came to him and talked to him, and he was there standing talking by himself, and then he wrote a book, right? It's like why
yeah,
would now if it would be now they would just throw him in the hospital and say like you're crazy, but back then it was like wow you're so great and like you know
yeah,
we're gonna start a religion and worship you. So like what is the difference?
yeah. No, exactly. Well, I mean, the main difference would be that they believe that like Moses, for instance, was actually talking to God, whereas now like you're not. Basically, I mean, that's what they would probably say is no one. But then they all. What's weird is they also say that like people do talk to God. So it's like there's just exactly what you're saying. Like there's this very weird kind of like boundary between what Western civilization considers real and not real. Like it's okay to talk to God, but it's not okay to talk to voices or
Yeah.
for some Christians even
So
doing ayahuasca at all is probably looked down upon.
yeah. So if you're a schizophrenic and you're talking to voices, if you want to be accepted, just say you're talking to God and go to church, and maybe you'll even become a pastor.
Yeah, the weird thing is with that is that I think that like a lot of times instead of them saying you're talking to God, like they say, oh, like you're talking to demons or something. You know what I mean? Or like
Yeah.
Satan's coming after you. But like, are you religious at all? Like, are you any type of normal like traditional religion, or are you just kind of
I mean, I grown up as a Christian Orthodox, but I was never really religious, but I am spiritual now. I believe in higher power. I'm not really sure exactly. I have not finished forming my worldview. But recently I realized that there can be what I kind of understood is as long as people believe in something, they make it real. So I think there's a possibility that all of the gods people believe in are real because they make them real by believing in them. That's kind of quantum if you think about it. But honestly, yeah, I definitely believe there's something above us or that we're all kind of part of it. But no definitive answer there for you.
Yeah.
Are you
Have
spiritual?
like kind of a similar thing where I was raised Christian. So I think that like I would consider myself Christian because culturally I'm a Christian. It's one of those things that's hard to kind of like answer like whether or not how much I believe, and I'm not really practicing, but it's hard to be like, I don't really know if what they say happened really happened, because it's like I was told that if you don't believe, you go to hell basically. So it's like you have to go to heaven. And in order to go to heaven, you have to believe in it. And so it's kind of hard. But anyways, yeah, I was raised Christian. And I still consider myself a Christian. But in terms of the quantum physics stuff, how much do you know about that?
Not much.
Not
But
much. Okay.
something that you just said regarding religion is like we had people with like Hasidic Jews and we had Sikhs from India and like Muslims and Buddhists and obviously lots of Christians. And it doesn't matter what they believe in, it kind of like the medicine gets their connection to their version of God stronger. So somehow they understand it better, they feel it better. So it's a really interesting thing that I believe in the end of the day, all the religions they kind of like saying the same word in different language.
Yeah, and it's kind of like whatever works for you. Like I mean, honestly, the last couple people that I've had on, um, they have like different beliefs and stuff, and it's like, and I kind of am like, I don't know, this is pseudoscientific, or I don't know if I believe in this, but they're like, it works for me, and it's like, well, if it works for you, it works for you, and I've heard that a ton of people say that ayahuasca works for them. So you also mentioned like the McKenna brothers on the email you sent me, and I think you were saying like they went to Colombia, not Brazil or something, right?
Yeah, like a lot of people associate ayahuasca with Peru specifically, but not many people know that, for example, Richard Evans Schultes, like the guy that kind of popularized ayahuasca recently, the ethnobotanist, he was doing his research in Colombia, not in Peru. And the McKenna brothers also visited Colombia and they were like exploring mushrooms here and stuff like that. It's just that when the whole narcos thing happened and the drugs, then Colombia was obviously dangerous. So it got when the psychedelic tourism was popularized, Colombia was kind of overlooked because of that.
So what happened with the Narcos thing? Like there was just a big drug bust in Colombia. There was a lot of like illegal drugs going around, or what?
I mean, the Pablo Escobar and this whole story where it was like drug wars everywhere. So obviously it was a scary place for people to come to, and this is why ayahuasca kind of retreats, and most of them were popularized in Peru or even Costa Rica, where ayahuasca is not from originally. So what I'm trying to do also with my work is kind of like fix that historical mistake and kind of give Colombia bigger space and kind of like bring knowledge that not only it has ayahuasca, but it's as good, if not better, than everywhere else. And my main website still is ayahuascaincolombia.com.
For some reason, I thought that ayahuasca was mainly like, I don't know why I thought this, but mainly like Brazil. But is that wrong? Is it mostly like you're saying
No,
Colombia,
that's not
Peru?
that's not wrong. If you look at Amazon, there's a part there in northwestern Amazon, which is like a relatively small circle that encompasses Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Brazil. This is where it's from. But it's
So
like I'm saying
basically,
that there's a
it's
very
the whole area.
robust. robust tradition in Colombia. There's 5 tribes that work with ayahuasca, and there's many other tribes around the Amazon. However, it's just that everyone thinks like, oh, ayahuasca is something you do in Peru. That's what I used to think when I came to Colombia. I didn't know that there was ayahuasca here. So obviously, when I learned about it and I started to become passionate about it, I want to kind of right that wrong, and I want people to know that you can come to Colombia to drink ayahuasca, and it's as traditional and also pretty affordable. Like if you compare our price, for example, with retreats in Costa Rica, like I mentioned, there's $7,000 to $10,000 retreat per week. Like we charge $800 for a week, and we even have retreats that costs only 500. So, and um, that's another benefit, I guess.
Yeah. So are there a lot of like people, like tribes living down in the Amazon still? Like, is it pretty? Is there a lot of people down there living in there?
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of people living in Amazon, but just in Colombia alone, there's like 50 different tribes that still have their languages, that still kind of have a bit of their culture.
And are they kind of just like living totally off the land? Like they're just kind of like literally like hunting,
No,
like living primitively?
most of
How
them
are
are
they?
now kind of connected to the world, and they go to schools and they wear clothing. It's just that they look indigenous. Like my shaman, I mean, he looks indigenous, but he plays guitar and he uses WhatsApp, and he's like a pretty smart guy. It's just that he's indigenous, and he grew
Do they
up
live
like
in?
bare feet, I guess, in the jungle.
Do they live in the Amazon, but they like still have cell phones and like do they live in like
Yeah, I
huts or
mean, it's
houses
like
or?
think about like you have a house, but something similar, but in the Amazon. So you have a house, and but it's just like when you come out, you might see an anaconda or a monkey or a parrot, something like that. So it's a pretty normal life. I like depends on how deep in the jungle you go, but the parts I've been to, there are cities and there are hospitals and restaurants and stuff like that. But then you drive for like a few hours and take a boat, and you're in a jungle.
Damn, that's crazy. So like they have
Vika,
internet.
I kind of got to run now, so let's wrap up if possible.
Okay, so yeah, just plug your retreat and then your podcast, and then also I always ask like um if you're into any like music, movies, podcasts, books, whatever you want to plug that's like kind of like into this type of subject.
Cool. So podcast, my podcast is very simple, ayahuascapodcast.com. It's a podcast on everything about ayahuasca. I interview like writers, experts, and also like success stories. So if you're curious about ayahuasca and you're a podcast person and you want to collect information, just go listen. If you listen to all the episodes, you'll know more about ayahuasca than me, because I probably don't remember all of them. And then my retreat is called Lawayra, Lawayra, or if you're watching video, I have it here on my t-shirt. And if you Google ayahuasca in Colombia, or if you go to ayahuascaInColombia.com or lawira.com, you'll find our retreat. We have 3 retreats every month. So come over, and once you're ready, get your healing, get your growth. It's an amazing medicine. Really hard to explain. I'm really trying my best, but it's somehow it just makes people feel better and live better lives. So,
Yeah, I think
and
that it's becoming more and more popular.
plugging something else, I don't know, podcasts, movies. I don't watch that many movies, podcasts. Mm, I like Tim Ferriss podcast. I learned a lot about psychedelics there as well. But yeah, not much to say.
Okay, or
Not
music. Is there any like good music to listen to while?
check out Lawira's playlist on YouTube. We have a music from our ceremonies, because our Taita is also really badass musician. He plays flutes and the small guitars and big guitars. We have like a band, like a 5 people band. Pretty cool music. Check it out.
Cool. Do you guys also have like YouTube videos showing what's going on down there?
Yeah, I have like on our Instagram, I have like 200 testimonials, just people asking them, about their experiences. And yeah, there's on our YouTube, we have one video where the couple that came and they made this whole vlog about their experience. So it's pretty cool. It's like 15-minute video. It's called Behind the Curtains of like what happens at an ayahuasca retreat, I believe.
All right, cool. Thanks for coming on. I'll check everything out, and then I'll send you those links when they're up.
Thank you, Mika. It was a pleasure, and yeah, keep doing the good work. And if you ever are curious about ayahuasca, you know what to do.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. If I ever decide to take it, I'll hit you up for sure.
Sounds good.
Okay, bye.
Cheers.